Okay, Duane, I would start by relating a conversation I had with one of the African new friends who is based in the Congo. And I think you can guess what we discussed about, which is only existential problems uh, and all that, existential personal problems. And it's uh, it's very telling of people living in this part of the world that uh, they expect the real guides to physically um, intervene in their lives or in the political affairs of a country to right things, to right wrongs, because new friends are living there. So well, at my own level, I I told him that well, the real guides are not interested in the political and social issues of a country. They stay aloof, and they are only interested in the highest goal that one may have for oneself, which is to get out of this matrix and find the peace and comfort of the real universes. So it was some kind of I don't know whether because somebody of from a spiritual background, a kanka, this these titles you call well new leaders and all the like the sort of thing that would just have some magical power or something like that. Or they say you should tell the new man to do this, to do that. This is how we are living. How can we continue to live like this? I say, look, uh, there is nothing that life can do for you. Life will only open doors that help you to open doors that you want to open, and nothing more. I don't know, Dwayne, whether my response was anything in line with what you would say to Dwayne.
Um, Again, I get it. And this is going to, you know, continually be the situation because people are living in the past. That's one way to look at it. They really are. They're looking at the so-called stories and magical formulas that they've been told and taught. And so when you might say when people get bored, well, because they don't have the real knowledge, they go into these other areas, just like in Africa. They've got the magic and the voodoo guys, and here we've got technology, which is black magic. It's all the same thing. It's just viewed differently. And so people look to that. You know, just like when you see people here walking down the street, everybody's got their cell phone looking at their cell phone. This is their little magic wand, is what it is. You know, 24/7, they got their cell phone, which is understandable because this is an information world and things are happening. But you know, the new presentation, and it takes a few minutes. This is a lifetime study. This isn't all of a sudden, oh, gee, I like what you're doing. I'm doing the new you, and okay, but nothing's happening. Well, yes, it is, but it's not in the same consideration that you've been brought up with. Okay, it's not that at all. You have to learn to see it. In other words, not see so much what I'm presenting, what is being presented, and the knowledge and information, but what it is that the reality, this isness, that already is, and we'll say supports everything. We'll just use that idea, but it's really not so. Just like the air we breathe, it already is. And so now we're at that point where each individual, they must decide for themselves or stay with their old ideas and their personal self, just listen to their personal self and how they've been trained, how they've been brought up and into their routines. And usually, of course, we all have drama. You know, again, I have the personal self. I see how it is. It's a funny thing. And it's been created a particular way, and in the cells of the body, or whatever you want to call it, and with the other 4 bodies that we carry, you have all these impressions. And not only that, we're getting bombarded every day with impressions. All the black magic, everything is bombardment. Even from other planets, they have installations that are bombarding this planet with subliminals, and everything is a subliminal here. And so, yes, this is where it takes courage to figure out, and you have to be creative. This is what creation is about. It's not about just listening to somebody. It's not about listening to me or the old masters or the priests or whatever. It's not about listening to them. It's about figuring out what is real now. And so, yeah, this takes a particular view. And it takes time, and it's not in the same sense as you've known. This is where people come and go because they just don't get it. They just think that, oh, well, I read the books, I've been doing the new you, I have some experiences, but I'm still wondering about this and that. Well, guess what? As long as you have a personal self and these 5 bodies, you're always going to be wondering about something. That's the side of you. That personal self, that's how it's going to be. It's like raising a child. You'd like the child to do this or do that or whatever, but the thing is, the child's going to do what it's going to do. The personal self is going to do what it's going to do. So you have to decide with yourself how to recognize your real awareness aside from that. And also, it's not about that, people are, just because they believe or they like the guides or they have experiences, that they're going to go to the 7th level and life's going to be great. No, these are the old stories. There's more to life than anything you can consider, but you have to discover how that is. So, yes, coming back to Earth here and all these things, it's like Paul said, you got one problem, you got another, you resolve it, then you got another. It's not about resolving these situations. It's learning to be creative and seeing what's going on. This world is like it is because we've all agreed to it to this point. We have agreed to this, each one of us. So the world is like it is. Now all of a sudden we complain. This is where people, are, petitioning the governments and whatever. It's like, hey, we don't like the situation here. Well, duh, you've agreed to it. Up to this point, now you don't like what you've agreed to, and you expect those people that control you to agree to your petitioning. Does that make sense? And so the guides step in, and so now you have the real knowledge and the real guidance, but it's not the same as it was in Paul's day. It's not the same as it was through all these years. It's not the same as it is in religions and spiritual paths and whatever. No, it is not the same because it is a recognition of your real awareness and seeing, but you have to learn to be very creative here, okay? Otherwise, you just deal with it. You do something, okay, along those lines, and through that creativeness, you start to see more, okay? So there's no answer for these people, and they will struggle, and that'll be it. And so, yeah, because it's all available now. Like never before, it's all available, but you've got to recognize it. You see, Charles? It's a recognition now. It's not a literal thing with your mind, or where you stand in line and you get a loaf of bread and it's like, oh, gee, the guides gave me a loaf of bread. Well, maybe you can stand in line and get a loaf of bread. But I don't see it that way. In other words, you decided to stand in line, so you got a loaf of bread, but people will say, oh, well, God gave me this. So again, they're trying to use this whimsical ideas of magic to think that, oh, well, if I go stand over there, if I do this, God will do this for me too. See, it's always someone else instead of figuring it out. So we've all come here. We've had to figure out the situation. I had to figure out the new presentation. You know, I didn't do this overnight. I had over 30 years in the corporation with Paul and the Real Guides, and plus when I was younger, came in here to prepare to figure this out. And so people come in and they're getting the end result basically here with the references that I'm providing, and they think that they can figure it out in a couple of weeks. Here's the idea. Go be a doctor and go to all the schooling and the medical school and all this stuff. How long is that going to take you? 20 years? Now multiply that times 1,000. Okay, that's what you're up against and more. This is ongoing. This is the big deal. And the thing being is that this is why it's not the same. But our approach is with the all-natural environment. That's the isness life is, to be recognized. And once you start recognizing this, whoa, this is really cool. But there's no magical process to, manipulate the forces in creation. This is where you gain the awareness to become more aware so that you can recognize moment by moment what to do. And at the same time, you have to, walk through the minefield of what has been created here and deal with it. I do too. Yeah. So again, yes, these personal issues, it's a lifetime study. That's all there is to it. Just like we come through high school, first grade, second grade, whatever, high school into college. It's a lifetime study. This is bigger than any of the education that we've gone through. No comparison. And people expect that they're just going to pick it up right away. Yeah. So again, and the first part, which is really the toughie, actually the isness is easier and a lot more fun. But the toughie is getting through your personal self to in some way start to recognize your real awareness and the difference. That is the toughie, and that's what you're dealing with these people. They don't want to face their real side. They want to pretend that someone else will take care of them. It won't happen. It will never happen. So they'll keep coming back here, looking to the gods, looking to the authorities, etc., as long as they do. And yes, we use these facilities. We work the system. Yeah, that's of a particular. But that's not our being, you see. That's not the real you. It doesn't look to that. It utilizes the 5 bodies. That becomes the difference. So there's like 2 of you. And you decide how you're going to recognize this and take on the adventure and risk what you will to see this, because you got to be the risk taker to see it. Because if you're looking for things to be comfortable and compliant, you're not going to see it. Because that's not life. Life is real survival. It's all about real survival and figuring it out. But once you start to see it, because it's a seeing and being, and then at the same time you got these 5 bodies, they have nothing to do with the whole of life. These are just situations that we have to deal with, that we learn from, to recognize and compare. That becomes the difference. See, they never told you that in Sunday school, or your spiritual classes, or whatever, or the education you got. No, they never told you that, how to figure this out. No, they kept you confused and distorted. So now most people are confused and distorted, and they think that confusion and distortion and figuring that out is the answer. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. You're not going to figure out what life is through distortion. So you have to learn to recognize what the distortion is. So if you're begging to the gods or the guides, that's distortion. It's not about that. So that's the short answer. Charles, go ahead.
Well, not so short, Jay. Yeah, you've just hinted on what I told him. I told about being creative one's life. So I told him to act as if the real guides, he's never known the new man, and the real guides and all the like. That he should live his life, from that perspective, doing what he can do personally, to lift himself and lift others around him, lift all life and uplift all life, and just act as if nothing else exists, and that start from the perspective that he's all and all, and he depends on himself to make things move and with no outside interference. And then maybe there will be a difference. And I even told him that, look, like you just talked about having a magic wand to manipulate the forces of nature. Yeah, I told him that, well, from my perspective, I don't see the new man or the real guides bending the forces, the laws of nature here. They don't have any interest to do that because it keeps them distracted from their real goal, and that everyone will have to figure out how to sail out of this matrix. And I think if one has the highest goal of life in view, then he can more easily sail through, go through all the ups and downs of in creation. And I told him, look, Duane has a lot of projects which need financing, and he's been soliciting for finance for quite some time now, and there are blockages. There are blockages to this happening, and he's been patient. He's waiting for people to understand that what he needs these funds for is for the benefit of all of life, and it's not happening as fast as he would have wished. So I asked him, why does he think that the new man has, we are all in the same life? And why does he think that you have this problem? Why should he not just use whatever force at his disposal to make things move? Why should he be patient? Why should he go through all the difficulties that we also face here? And then you're asking him, don't you see what he's going through while on this earth? So he became quiet for some time and bethought himself. Said, look at, even in the Christian arena, people have been praying for thousands of years and living in abject poverty, corruption, and all the like all over the world. Why have all those prayers to God not alleviated their conditions? Why has God not taken away all the corrupt politicians that we find on earth? Some, like in Africa, they stay for 35, 37, 38 years, and they're lording it over the people. And the people are every day in church praying and asking for God's intervention and God's help. So why is it not happening? So he really had some food for thought. Yeah.
Well, God hired those corrupt politicians, Charles.
Yeah.